Hello, John at Theology Ed. We're going to continue. This is part 4 of the iPet Goat Explained series, and in this one I'm going to get right to it. We're going to look at the equation that we didn't get to at the end of part 3. That's the equation beneath the board that has the vector f equals negative vector f. I'll explain a little bit about how that math works, but more importantly, what it means. In order to get there, I'm going to quickly review part 3, and I'm going to do that in a way that those of you who didn't get through the full hour of the other one can sort of get the idea quickly. It was a long video, a lot of details, and I'm sure some people aren't going to get through it. So let's look at this very quickly. I talked about in that video the importance of the mark of the beast to the iPet Goat 2 video, the whole film. This is a central theme of the video. It is a ritual. Remember, this is ritual magic, and the ritual magic is a conjuring ritual. I pointed out in one video. It's a conjuring ritual. We know that because the Lilith character, the girl in the room with the magic circle around her, also has here the triangle of the arts, or the triangle of Solomon nearby, and that is in magic. When they conjure the demons have to go there, and then they're at the bidding of the people. So the idea is they're trying to get these demons to go there and to be under their control and to do what they want them to do. So the magic supposedly giving them power. And so in this ritual in particular, in iPet Goat 2, I believe what they're doing is what was called the Mark of the Beast ritual by Aleister Crowley. And that's why at the very beginning we have the goat with the 666. We had some symbolism before there, not just with the black sun, the crescent moon, but also what looked like male genitalia or phallus, which is also a symbol of the Mark of the Beast for Aleister Crowley. I'll just review that in a second. But this chalkboard scene, we have here this being related to 666. We have this being the symbol of the Mark of the Beast, and we have the snowflakes over here representing as well Mark of the Beast 666 in a way. And I'm going to show these very quickly. The other video gets into detail, but I'll also point out at the beginning here that not only is there 666 on the head, the actual name of the video, iPet Goat 2, in English gematria is 666. This is a clear theme, again, of the iPet Goat video, and if there's going to be a theme of the video as the Mark of the Beast, it doesn't make any sense, neither biblically when we talk about the Mark of the Beast, nor in their own theories, as in the occult, to talk about a Mark of the Beast without a beast or the Whore of Babylon. So that's all going to be a part of this video, and a correct interpretation of the video will include those elements. Now, let's look quickly. How is this the Mark of the Beast? According to Crowley, the Mark of the Beast symbol is this symbol. It is, of course, looks like male genitalia, but you have up here, you have the sun, a symbol of the sun. That's the circle with that point in the middle. And the part beneath it is the crescent moon, and it's the union of the crescent moon, the moon and the sun, that the symbol, the Mark of the Beast, is represented by. And so we see this graphically. The Mark of the Beast is represented in its most simple form as the sun and moon united, and there's that symbol, this part, okay? And among other things is the symbol of Babylon and the beast conjoined and the great work accomplished. Great work leading into the Aeon of Horus, that's what they call it, and talk about that in the other video, but you have the 3 Aeons of Thelema, which is the Aeon of Isis, next of Osiris, and the last one of Horus, and the Horus Aeon is the most enlightened, and to get into that Aeon, he gets rid of the resurrection Aeon, Osiris. So all the rituals and religions and things that depend on resurrection, especially Christianity. So here we have the male principle, the phallus. Up here we have what clearly resembles the Mark of the Beast symbol, except profile rather than from the top. So what we have is this part, but we don't have the crescent moon here. That's the crescent moon. Remember, we've talked about that in other videos. But this is the crescent moon. The shark is representing a beast coming out of the water. It's hopping up, looking this way, as the crescent moon. We're getting the solar principle united via the sperm to the lunar principle. That's the union of the sun and the moon, which is the Mark of the Beast represented in its most simple form, and is a representation also of the symbol of Babylon, the beast conjoined, and the great work accomplished. I mean, they're going to finish up this move to the Aeon of Horus by eliminating resurrection, religion, and beliefs. This is why it's important at the end of this video that the church is destroyed, right? He looks away, the Horus does that character, the Antichrist character, looks away, and the church is destroyed. That's the end of the Aeon of Osiris. Where else do we see this Mark of the Beast thing? In a footnote in the book in which Crowley's ritual of the Mark of the Beast is described how you're supposed to do it. There's a footnote that says something about this. This is or could RHK, the Lord of the System in visible form, now we're going to figure out who that is, I'll mention that in a second, be the two halves of the brain? I think so. Then 666 is Anahata. Okay, and Anahata chakra, this is the symbol. Here is another symbol of 666 then, right? You have the six-pointed star inside a circle with these points, and here the snowflakes are representing that. You have this six-pointed hexagram star, okay, with a circular shape and sort of these things sticking off the outside. It's a nice way to reveal and conceal at the same time. And here is your two halves of the brain being split. Okay. Again, the board is capturing things all related to this mark of the beast symbolism, which we would expect given the beginning of the video with the goat having the mark of the beast, and we see symbol after symbol, and even the name of the video telling us 666, right? So when we look here again, we're looking at related to the mark of the beast, symbol of the mark of the beast, 666. We're getting it one time after another, and interestingly, this is in the same linear line. If you look at this as a timeline from right to left again, where you pass the eclipse and come into this area. Okay, which I talk a lot about that stuff in the other video. Now, who is RHK? RHK is Hoor Khuit. Had it and knew it. So Hoor Khuit is RHK. Crowley was big into the worship of this guy. Had it and knew it had it represents the beast. Knew it represents the scarlet woman, or the whore of Babylon. Okay, and that's who they worship. Officers of the supreme ritual are enjoined to seek knew it and had it through Babylon and the beast. And when we go over and we see what's going on, what the goal is here, according to Egyptian mythology, the birth of Horus required the death of Osiris. Osiris was the god associated with resurrection in Crowley's theology, if you want to call it that. Thus, Crowley claimed the Aeon of Horus abrogated the rituals of Osiris, by which is meant the interpretation of Jesus' sacrifice as sorrowful, promoting concepts of self-sacrifice, martyrdom, life through physical death. A spiritual message has been distorted into blackness in the Aeon of Osiris. Its time was up. The sun child, Horus, would triumph. Aiwas's message challenged civilization at its most fundamental level. Until we get the message, get rid of Osiris, get rid of Christianity, get rid of resurrection religion, get rid of self-denial and the teachings of Christ, right? Until we get the message, asserted Aiwas, there will be war, the burning side of the life-giving sun, nature unbalanced. The burning side of the life-giving, capital S, sun. That's Horus. This is the burning side of Horus. Horus is RHK. This is the active principle of what we'll see in the next slide, Raha, which is the composite of active Hoor Khuit. There's the active principle, and the passive Hoor Khuit. Weird names, all that stuff. Don't let that distract you. The idea is Horus is represented as Raha. That's the name they're given to Horus. He combines the ideas of Horus with Ra and spirit, getting this composite deity of Hoor Khuit and Hoor Khuit. It's representing, is symbolized by the twins Harpocrates and Horus. This is a depiction of Raha, Horus being the falcon head, and Harpocrates here. Okay, and Harpocrates is just the Greek Horus. The Egyptian child god Horus, known as Harpocrates in Greek, is the son of Isis and essentially the personification of the newborn sun. Okay, so what we have here is Hoor Khuit, this Antichrist figure who's going to go and cause war or whatnot until the Christians are out of the picture, until we get the message. There will be war, the burning side of the life-giving Horus sun, the active principle, nature unbalanced. That is RHK. RHK is Hoor Khuit. And this fire of truth character is Hoor Khuit. He is called the crowned and conquering child. He is the Horus on the horizon, the sun on the horizon. Horus is the sun on the horizon or whatever. So here you have this. And he says in Crowley's book, when Crowley writes in the person of RHK, he says, RHK says, Now let it be first understood that I am a God of war and of vengeance, which is why he's going after the Age of Osiris remnants, the Christians and so on. Okay, so we have identified him as Horus, but not just Horus as the warring and vengeful, crowning, conquering Lord of the Aeon, that is opposed to Osiris. That's who he is. That's why people call him, when they say that's the Antichrist, we're not expecting that a guy in particular like him to show up. He may go through a guy, sure, but the point is we're not expecting this guy to show up. This is representing the god or demon that they are summoning and conjuring in the ritual. They are calling on Horus in his vengeance and warlike character to show up and destroy what's left of the Age of Osiris, the Inn of Osiris, Christianity, and resurrection mythology and religion. Okay? So they are after the end of that, and that's what this is all about. This is a video in which they're performing ritual magic to go ahead and call upon vengeful Horus to come and put an end to the Age of Osiris, including Christianity, principally Christianity. And that's why it's a Mark of the Beast ritual. And we get the Mark of the Beast throughout this. So now let's look at the equation. The equation is vector f equals negative vector f. This is a vector equation. Vectors in math, we're going to do this really quickly. Don't be disturbed by the vector stuff. I'll tell you what it is. This is representing, I believe, not 100% sure, but pretty close. This is representing the end of retrograde Venus. Okay, and I'll explain that, but that gives us a time actually. Or we could say that it is the time more generally at which something turns around. So it's going one direction, stops, and goes the other direction. That moment at which it stops to turn around, it can represent that, and you'll see. So vectors are like these little lines that have direction. So you have direction and magnitude. It's a vector. Okay, those are the two elements of a vector. For two vectors to be equal, they must have the same direction and the same magnitude. The negative sign reverses the direction of the vector. So if you have a vector b and it's going one direction, a negative b would be going the other direction. Okay, so it's just turning it around. So when we have f equals negative f, it's like you have two different directions. We have one direction, then the other direction, but they're supposed to be equal. And the question is, when do you have two opposite directions of vectors being equal? If they have magnitude, if they have length, they're not equal. Null vectors, however, or zero vectors, do not have magnitude or direction, but they can be said to have any direction because they don't have direction. So we can have a zero vector like this. It's just a point. Okay, it's not a vector with magnitude. It's just a point. So in a vector, a null vector, the starting point equals the end point. In other words, here at A, which is a vector with magnitude, we have the starting point and end point, but they're not the same point. So if you flip it and make it go the other direction, you're going to have a different starting point, different ending point. But in a zero vector, where it's a point, the starting point and the end point are the same point because it's only a single point. Okay? And so if you were to reverse it, put a negative sign in front of it, you're not changing the starting and end point. You're not changing anything. You still would have an equivalent vector. Okay, so we're going to keep going. Equal vectors have the same magnitude and direction. You can look over these pictures if you understand enough math. If you're not interested in that, we'll keep going. One property of the equality of vectors is AB equals negative BA. So if you switch the starting and end point and then switch the sign, you still have equal vectors. But that works with the null vector. We can say that a positive and negative null vector are equal because the starting and end points are the same. So we can actually switch them, put the negative sign, we're still going to get equals. We can represent velocity as a vector. Something in motion has velocity, right? The magnitude of a velocity vector is its speed. So that's the length of it is representing its speed. And when we have a null velocity vector, it's when something comes to a stop. The equation is at the top. This equation that's below the board is true if and only if you have this as a null vector. And I think the way to look at this is as velocity. So when we have motion, one direction, and then it stops, and then goes back, we have the other direction. But there's that point in the middle when it stops, when you would have an equality here. Okay, so F equals not F at the moment that this moving thing that has the velocity stops, and the vector is a null vector because you have no motion. And so that's why I said earlier that it could represent, or probably represents, the end of the retrograde motion of Venus. I'll do a little more about this in a second, or more generally, just a turnaround. And when I mentioned the more generally, just a turnaround, what I have in mind there is the possibility of, of the idea that we're going right to left on the chalkboard until we arrive at this equation. And perhaps we're supposed to then turn around and go back and look forward a little bit as well. I'm not sure, because it certainly looks like the shark is looking at the house. However, the burning house. So it continues right to left motion there. But that's not to say that there is no way in which we're supposed to go to the right as well, because when we look at the board, we do have, and that wall, we do have things going left to right. I mean, it does look like the word evolution from left to right. It does, if you go above the chalkboard, you do have the evolving man, right, going to enlightened man from left to right. If you look at the letters on the alphabet on the wall behind the teacher, it does go from left to right, even if the capitalization goes from right to left. You know, it's capital M, lowercase m, it's capital Q, lowercase q. But when you look at the order of the letters, it would start at A at the left, B, C, D, E, F, G, and goes left to right like we would read in English, from left to right on the page. So there can be a both and on the chalkboard possibly. And so, but I'm less convinced of that at this point. I'm still looking into it and trying to figure out how would that work if this turnaround point of the equation is saying we're supposed to read the chalkboard backwards in some way. That would be an interesting thing to keep in mind or to have in mind. And maybe you guys can help me with that. But I think I'm fairly confident of the Venus retrograde and as an interpretation of the equation. And I'll explain why. When we look at retrograde motion of a planet, it looks like this, okay, more or less. This is an example taken from retrograde motion of Mars in 2005. From the perspective of Earth, Mars is moving along, or the planet, whatever planet it is, when we have these, it moves along in one direction and then, it's going to go back. And it goes back. And up, it stops, and it's going to go forward. Retrograde motion is marked by these apparent stops and reversals. Okay? Going, slow down, slow down. See the pictures of the planet, they get closer because it looks like it's slowing down. It goes along, up, stop, go back. Up, stop, go back. All right, so we have the stop point. At that point, we could, if you're just being creative and using these vector equations as a way to try to communicate something like you would have in IPET Go 2, you could represent this as the moment when vector F equals negative F, because at that point, it's not going either way. It stops. It comes to that moment of turn. That would be the beginning or end of a retrograde motion. Now, let's see. When we look here, we have the eclipse on June 21st. Soon after that, we have a crescent moon that is directly above the equation. So we have this equation. Now we have to ask the question, is there an end or beginning of retrograde motion in the 6-day period after the when we have crescent moons after the eclipse? And the answer is yes, we do. Venus, which is the planet with the least frequent retrograde cycle periods, enters retrograde on May 13th and ends on June 25th. June 25th being just 4 days after the solstice eclipse. So, what's the moon like on June 25th? It is a waxing crescent moon in your post-solar eclipse period. So what we have as I believe, is a creative way to represent Venus retrograde. Okay, and so when we see the heliofont name at the end of the video, for example, and the eye moves over near the eclipse, the dot over the eye moves over and stops. I don't know. It may represent. This is just one possibility. I'm not certain of this at all. But one possibility is that after the eclipse, you actually have the motion of Venus stop and then go back, right? So it's the end of retrograde motion. And it's significant for a variety of reasons astrologically that, I don't believe in that stuff, but the point is, for them, it can be considered important for different reasons. And they are also, one or two of them are also on this board, and I'll be getting to those in future videos. So please like, subscribe, and share the video and comment below. That is all I have to say. That's what the equation represents, I believe, the June 25th end of Venus retrograde. Doesn't mean anything's going to happen on the date in particular. It could all be ritual. Remember, a lot of these things they do are rituals in order to make things happen afterwards. This could all be preparation for a big ceremony that they're going to have that we aren't involved in or invited to as the quote-unquote profane. So I'm not sure what will happen, but we'll see. But this is all ritual magic. It's a conjuring rite. Okay, take care.